Hey guys, my name's Tom Rohrer. I'm a skateboarder, graphic designer. I live in San Diego, California. Grew up in Minnesota. Been out in California for about 13 years now. And I'm going to share my testimony with how God actually responded to one of my prayers for the first time. When I was in my mid-20s, I was way different than I am now. Big time. I strayed away from my faith big time. Got heavily into drinking, doing drugs, and partying a lot, and just going kind of crazy. I was pretty wild back then. And one night I had an LSD trip, an acid trip. And during the trip and afterwards, actually, is when I started questioning who God was. And I completely fallen for it, looking back at it, and for weeks after that, just praying off and on to this universal form of God, or the universe, instead of actually God himself, God who has an identity. And so it was the emptiest I'd ever felt in my entire life. I've never felt so empty than I did after this experience of having this LSD trip and not knowing who God was. Finally, I'm back visiting home. I'm with my family. They tell me, why don't you pray? Why don't you just pray and ask God to show you if that was him or just who he is in general. Have him reveal himself to you. See if he does. It doesn't hurt to ask. So that night, I was with my family having the most insane conversation I've ever had. Every single word that was spoken related perfectly to all the thoughts that I've been having in my mind. And so anyway, that night, I go to bed and I pray. I say, God, from the bottom of my heart, Lord, please show me who you are. I can't do this, Lord. I'm struggling. I need to know who you are, Lord. I don't know what to do. I've tried everything. I prayed with every single ounce of my soul that night. And I think God knew that I needed this. But as I'm sleeping that night, I have the most vivid, memorable dream I've ever had in my entire life. I've never had a dream like this before. Neither could I remember all the details like I remembered this dream. But in my dream, it starts off with me standing out in this big open field, and I'm looking, and there's this big tall building, really tall, apartment building structure, probably 20 or 30 stories, and my family's in that building up in the top story. All my family that I was with that night that told me to pray, that were Christians, strong believers for their whole lives, they are in that building. And then I'm looking this way, across the field this way, probably a football field away. There's a little hill in the distance going across the entire horizon. And behind the building where my family is in, there's another big hill, but it's a lot taller than that little hill. And on the other side of that big hill is the ocean. And all of a sudden in my dream, this giant flood starts coming and gushing over the little hill and taking out everything in its path, like a world-ending flood, literally. So I'm terrified. I gotta run, and I start running to go get my family to save them. I think I'm gonna save the day here. In my head, I keep saying, we gotta get to that taller hill, because I was looking at that lower hill and the flood came gushing over the lower hill. But I'm like, we gotta get to this taller hill because that's where we're gonna be safe. I know it, that's where we're gonna be safe. So I get to the building, I get to my family, I tell them all, we gotta go, this flood's coming, etc., yeah. Freaking out, right? Everyone else is calm. I tell them, we gotta get to the hill so we'll be safe. And then, what do you know? The flood hits the building, it's shaking, swaying left and right, everyone's freaking out. Actually, I was the only one freaking out. That's the funny part. It was super frantic to me, but my family was all calm the whole time, which also really spoke to me in this whole experience. But the whole building was swaying back and forth as the flood was hitting it, and then it finally kind of subsides and stops. And I'm like, we're okay. The whole time I was hugging everyone. I was I love you, thinking this is it. And then all along we're okay. And then I look outside, and the big hill that I wanted to go to for safety was completely engulfed in water. And the water connected with the ocean behind that hill. So everything was engulfed and destroyed except for the foundation that we were standing in. And so I woke up and immediately realized, wow, I've been praying to the wrong form of God for safety this whole time. That's why I've been so empty. There's been no identity. I've been praying to the universal description of God versus Jesus. And so that sparked a whole new drive in me to continue to pray and get closer to God. But then that's not even the end of it. There's 2 more parts to this. So about 2 days after this, I'm just kneeling at night, just praying, like with all my heart, praying that night. I don't even remember what I was praying, but at the end of the prayer, I go into this vision all of a sudden. And I'm sitting here across from this old wise man, and he sets something down and it drops into this dark, deep hole. And we're kind of in this void of space, right? And I look down and watch that thing sink, and I'm like, I'm not reaching for that. That looks dark, that looks uninviting. No, I'm not going for it. And then it kind of resets, and then he sets down this stone on the ground in between us. And so I reach down and I grasp this stone confidently too in my vision, just no thought, confidently grasp this stone and just like hold it up in the air, like so confidently. And I woke up, I was like, the rock. Jesus is known as the rock, like throughout the whole Bible. That's Jesus, he's the rock. You know, I knew, like in my heart, I knew that. And the second I woke up, I was like, wow. Like me trying to go for that deep thing that sank really deep and dark, that's where I was trying to go by believing that God was this universal description of himself. But he's not. He's actually a human being, you know. He actually has a personality, and Jesus Christ is the way to God. So I had the dream, I had this vision following the dream, and then last part of the story, a day or 2 later, my mom randomly just texts me this Bible verse, which she would do maybe every 6 months, every year, like not very often. It's super random. And this is the verse that she sends me. I gotta read it because I don't have the whole thing memorized. It's Luke 6:47-48. And it goes, "Whoever comes to me and hears my sayings and does them," this is Jesus speaking, "I will show you whom he is like. He is like a man building a house who dug deep and laid the foundation on the rock. And when the flood arose, the stream beat vehemently against that house and could not shake it, for it was founded on the rock." It's the exact verse from my dream. I had never heard this verse before in my life. And I happened to have this dream a couple days before, as well as the vision that I had. And both of them happened to line up perfectly with this verse. All of it happened within 4 days. Insane. Ever since then, I've had a whole new spark lit inside me to just follow God. The one thing that I would say is, if you're listening to this and you've never really known God or had an experience like this or have a personal relationship with God, it is so worth pursuing. Seriously. It's the least scary thing, as scary as it is made out to be. It's the most loving feeling you'll ever feel in your entire life. It's the most complete you'll ever feel in your entire life. The most full you'll ever feel as long as you live. You need to know God. If you don't know God, you need to. And seriously, it says in the verse, "Seek and you shall find. Ask and you shall receive. Knock and it shall be open to you." You'll never know who's on the other side of that door if you don't knock.